Welcome to the Cal Park Bros podcast. I'm your host, Terrence, and with me is my co host, Jason, calling in from the Bat Cave in Indianapolis. Jason, how are you, my good man?
I'm fantastic, sir. And I got to say, I love how you're very consistent when it comes to say that I'm calling from the Bat Cave. That makes you feel pretty special. As a Batman guy, when it comes to DC, I respect it and appreciate it.
Yeah, but I will never call you the Robin to my Batman because I don't believe in that shit.
Uh, in some ways, it could be a compliment if you did, though. I don't know. It could be.
Yeah, but most of the time when people try and say that stuff, they're trying to throw shade at one of the individuals.
Well, thanks
I
for not.
agree with your I agree with your sentiment, but Kendrick Perkins tried to pull a fast one.
Well,
I'm not mad. I'm not.
you know those NBA cats like throwing pulling fast ones and throwing shade. So
Yeah, and we know those MLB cats love throwing fast ones too.
wow.
Thank you for listening. This is episode 11 of the Cal Park Bros podcast. For the uninitiated, Cal Park Bros is a weekly podcast for fans of culture, sports, and entertainment.
And we are your hosts, Terrence and Jason. And every single Thursday, we release a brand new episode where we talk about the current events of the day and the athletes we love.
And even some of the athletes we loathe. No matter the topic, you can expect a brutally honest and fun exchange of snark while learning through the lens of our 30 years of friendship that originated in Calumet Park, Illinois.
For more Cal Park Bros content, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube for more behind the scenes content of the show. But also, the podcast is available for free and subscribe for free wherever you listen to podcasts.
Like us, love us, share us, follow us. And if you like us, why wouldn't you?
I will continue to say forever that is the best line in podcast history, sir. Love it. People love it, man. People are using it. And more importantly, people are actually doing it. So that's even better.
Jason, it's been a crazy Pride Month. There's been so much news coming out that, frankly, we didn't even want to do another episode without talking about this because we felt it was a big enough of a deal to actually have as a segment on the show. And that was Carl Nassib coming out as gay. He's the first active NFL player to do so. And that makes it a pretty big deal because we've certainly had some. Well, let's just be honest. We know that there are gay players in the National Football League. Question is, will they ever feel so emboldened to actually come out as Carl Nassib did? I know this was one of the topics you wanted to bring up, especially during Pride Month. Why did you feel that it was such a big deal to cover the subject?
Well, I mean, as you alluded to, it's something that's never happened before, ever. When it comes to
Keep
it
everything
happening,
moving or reinvent the wheel.
Huge increase in orders.
Sorry about that.
okay, I'm gonna start that over. But
Yep.
basically, it's something that's never happened before, and I feel like that in and of itself is worthy of us talking about on this show. History making happening. You know, NFL's first active, openly gay player. That's phenomenal. Um, Especially when it comes to what's considered a very manly, rugged sport. You know, it's good for that to take place in the NFL. Now, I will say that, I hopefully this doesn't, come off any sort of way that we chose to talk about it in June during Pride Month, but I feel like that's important. Um, the support's definitely there for Carl, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I feel like we had to talk about this. I mean, we talked yesterday about all sorts of different stuff that might have been sports connected or sports related, but what did it come back to talking about this? So definitely, it's highly important. Um, Now, I do feel like we have to point out a couple of things. That one, he's actually, this is my surprise a little bit that I kind of forgot about this, and I'm not sure what it means that we forgot about it. That he's actually not the first openly gay player to actually play technically in the four major sports leagues. He's actually not. I'd actually forgotten about this, that Jason Collins in the NBA 8 years ago actually came out as gay, and he actually did play actual NBA games after that. So technically, he was the first, and now Carl, provided he likes to play games here in the fall, which I'm sure he will be the second. Um, I know people want to mention Michael Sam back in the day. I believe 2013, 14. He was drafted by the Rams. He was openly gay going into the draft, but he never actually played any games in the NFL, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, man, I feel like this is a big deal. I just kind of put some perspective on it. The MLB, NHL, NFL, NBA, all four of those leagues, the major sports leagues, have been in existence for a combined 398 years. And yet we've only have two openly gay players to be active in those sports leagues. Only two. And even back when, Jason Collins came out, there was a lot of talk. And I remember this, that people were thinking, okay, now who's going to be the next person? This is going to open the door for others to feel comfortable enough to actually come out and also come out and be open about that. Well, as we see, that wasn't quite so easy. 8 years later, finally took another person to do it, a different sport. Football is important, I think. The manly sport. So I think that kind of had to be said there. And
I
of course,
mean,
we can always talk about
they're
why that
all
is.
they're
But
all manly or womanly, depending on your perspective. But ultimately, Jason, I think what's important is number one, Carl Nassib, and I hope I'm not butchering his last name. Shame on me if I am. But I feel like when the Michael Sam draft went down, I feel like a lot of people were trying to say, not a lot, but some individuals are trying to say that effectively teams weren't going to take a chance on him because he was gay. I think ultimately Michael Sam, given where he was drafted, I believe he was in the sixth or seventh round for crying out loud. He, while he had a decorated college career, he was not up to snuff on the professional side of town, and that's why he could never really get any traction past preseason. I think that's an important distinction. Whereas you got a guy like Carl Nassib, this is like his fifth or sixth year. Like it's been proven he can play at a professional level. So, and by all accounts, on the Oakland Raiders or the Las Vegas Raiders, I can't believe I'm actually saying that. Sounds fucking ridiculous.
get used to it.
But he is playing legitimate time. He's going to be playing legitimate games for the Raiders this year. So that is why it's significant, because it's not just, I don't want to say that it's for show, but it's like, okay, this guy's legit. He can play at a professional level. And it's really, him coming out is really more of an afterthought. And that's kind of what I hope will happen in the future when we hear about professional athletes simply sharing with the rest of the world that something that they, is a part of them. That's what I hope that will be the experience going forward. That when I think about professional sports, players' sexual preference should be an afterthought to me. It, it is a part of them, but I don't want the earth to cease to fucking rotate every time I hear that an athlete has come out, because you don't see people saying, "Hey, I've declared that if I was a professional player, and heterosexual, I would say I've declared that I like women." I'm like, no, that's what we've decided is the default, and I'm hoping we get to a point where one, it becomes an afterthought. And I'm not looking at this as this is a distraction for him or his football team. I'm looking more of it as, okay, we're talking about people and their right to be and exist and human decency. That's what it's about. So, but I also think it's about challenging stereotypes. You mentioned the idea behind National Football League being a testosterone fueled behemoth marketing enterprise, but also the sport at large. And I think it's very incredibly important that we challenge certain stereotypes. For example, that for whatever reason, we think that gay men are weak. Like Carl Nassib could probably fold both of us in half, Jason. Like he could literally kick the shit out of us. So when we call, when we encounter things on the interwebs, like, oh, we think this person is soft, or we think this person's effeminate. I'm like, listen, all I can do is just go back into my history, my memory of of men who happen to be gay, and think, man, there are a ton of those dudes that could have fucked me up. Okay, that we can't try to associate sexual preference with strength. So I think it's important that maybe this decision to come out, maybe it's good for Carl. I hope it is. I hope it's good for him personally. But I also hope it's good for society as well.
Well, I think despite possible negative aspects to it, I think it's a positive for society because again, it is something new. It's going to be something different. Um, I One thing I do have to wonder is you kind of mentioned some things being for show, and I do hope when it comes to the Raiders, them keeping him on the team because he's still under contract, which we know NFL contracts don't mean anything.
Yeah,
That he's still under
they
contract,
literally are not worth the paper on which they are printed. So
but he's still under contract. So all as of right now, he's going to be on the team next year, so he's going to play. But one thing I hope for the Raiders that they're not keeping him on the team for show. You know, they're keeping him on the team, hopefully, like you said, because of his talent, and they're never going to say anything different. Hopefully, he's still on the team because of his talent, not because, oh, you know what, we're going to keep him on the team because we want us to look like we support him in his mission. And they probably do. They probably really do. But I also, on the other hand, don't want them to not, like they had plans on cutting him before. Hopefully, they still go ahead and do that because of his talent, not because, oh, wait, we can't cut him because of, you know what I mean? So that's one thing I hope. And also, we're never going to know their true intentions. We're never going to know. And it may not matter. But but the reason why I bring that up, which kind of goes into another point that I was going to make, is that looking at the Raiders' depth chart, he's a defensive end. And right now, he's like number 3 on the one end, which I believe is the left end for the team. So that being said, likely he doesn't get the most playing time, obviously, but he's going to get some tick. But I bring that to say that he's not clearly one of the stars of the NFL. Neither was Jason Collins, who was at the end of his career. So I guess what my question I was going to go into, what I was going to talk about is, are we ever going to get to the point to where we see someone who is a bigger star in any one of the 4 leagues to actually come out as openly gay, if there are any? Which by numbers you have to think there are. I wasn't able to find any solid numbers on the percentage of gay men just in general in the U.S. Wasn't able to find anything solid anyway. The numbers I keep seeing are around 5-ish%, so 1 out of every 20. So if you were to use that number in sports, which may or may not be fair, you got to think with 1 out of every 20 guys just in the NFL, there's probably some guy who's probably one of the bigger stars in the league who probably is gay but hasn't come out yet. So I just kind of wonder, are we ever going to get to the point where we see more of that, no matter what the league is, you know? And we may not, and that's okay. People are going to come out whenever their own comfort level. That's okay. Be you. I don't know what Carl's Nassib or Nassib, whatever his motivation was for doing it right now when he did, which was about a week or so ago, but he still did it. He did it in a live public forum on Instagram, did it on an Instagram live, even said he's going to donate, I think, 100 grand to the Trevor Project, which I'm going to mention here a little later. But Terrence, do you think we'll ever get to that point to where we'll see bigger stars in these leagues actually come out as that while they're still playing and still at that star level?
Before we go down that path of what I think, can you tell the people a little bit more about the Trevor Project, because I think that's really important. That $100,000 he's talking about, where that's going.
Yes, I'll be glad to. Yes, I'll be glad to talk about that right now. Exactly. So the Trevor Project was the organization founded back in 1998, and it's basically a national organization that provides crisis intervention and suicide prevention services to people in the LGBTQ plus community, particularly for people who are under the age of 25. Um, and it's a fantastic organization from what I've been reading, and when it comes to what they do, what they feel is important when it comes to the youth of the LGBTQ community. And one thing I did want to point out, I was going to wait, but I'll definitely point it out now, is that it's a particular stat here that says, let me go back to it, that basically LGBTQ youth with at least one accepting adult have a 40% lower risk of attempting suicide. Now, I wanted to bring that up because I think that goes along with, even though this is targeted towards youth, I think that still goes a long way when it comes to people who are adults as well. People that might be above the age of youth, maybe not Carl's age, maybe a little younger, whatever it may be, or older. That the main point of that is acceptance. Right? Now, I don't know what the rates are for people who aren't considered youth, but the point of the matter is acceptance is important. Everybody needs at least one person to accept them who they are, and that's even really that's even if you're not part of the LGBT community. That's really for anybody, but for specifically for this topic, I think that's more important. I mean, one thing to look at it is, why did Carl wait till he was 28 years old to come out? Right? Why didn't he do it before? And I'm not saying he had to, but what I'm saying is, why aren't people
I
willing
know
to
you're not.
do so? You know what I mean? Why aren't people willing to do so when they because you would think he's a pretty confident individual way before now, being an NFL player. Maybe he wasn't. I could be wrong. But what was it that made him wait till he was 28, and why now? Why did he feel like he had to wait? Was he scared of something? Was he worried about people's reactions? Maybe now is just a moment where he felt like, you know what? I don't
I
care.
think a lot of that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think society as a whole. I mean, Jason, what's crazy is we and thank you for sharing what the Trevor Project is about, because I do think it's important what he actually was trying to bring awareness to. Because I don't think he was really doing this for himself. I mean, and it's perfectly okay if he was doing it for him, because it's about him. What I'm saying is, the you mentioned acceptance, and I think that's important, because number one, there's so much about society that it tells us that there's something wrong with us in the first place that we need to be fixing. We need to be fixed. I mean, think about some some people within the LGBTQ plus community have dealt with people literally like being excommunicated from their families. You know, they don't have anyone, or they effectively have been shunned from their family. So I think when you mention about just having one person that accepts you for who you are, that's a big deal. So
I Yeah, exactly. So, and one thing I do want to point out, when you said, and I know you didn't mean it this way, but I just want to get it out there. When you said that, you know, that he's not doing it for him, or maybe even if he is, so what? You know, yes, he's coming out publicly, I'm sure, for himself, I'm sure, but not in the way that people are thinking, where he's trying to come up, when it comes to like financial gain or anything like that. I mean, like you said, he's giving away 100 grand, so I'm sure that's not helping his pockets to do that, but he's still willing to do that because that's something he felt in his heart. Now, now, of course, he's going to get support, and he has gotten major support from this. I mean, I think the day after he announced this, or a few days after, he was already leading the league in jersey sales. Right? So that alone is huge support. And not to mention, I've seen quotes from other players that said, at least publicly, they say he's one of us, as in he's our teammate. He's an NFL player. He's a federal NFL player, not just from the Raiders, but all overall. And then also, now I don't. Now they didn't specify this was just for Carl, But the NFL, not long after, like actually a few days ago, yesterday, made a tweet which got a little bit of attention. I'll go and read it to you real quick. But basically, it said football is gay, football is lesbian, football is beautiful, football is queer, football is life, football is exciting, football is culture, football is transgender, football is queer, football is heart, football is power, football is tough, football is bisexual, football is strong, football is freedom, football is American, football is accepting, football is everything, football is for everyone. Thank you for bearing with me with reading that, but I felt like that was important. Um, yeah, basically they're saying, hey, you know what? We don't really care who you are. You want to play football? You come and try and play. If you're good, you'll stick around. But no matter who you are, we'll accept you. And I think that's hugely important for them to say. Hopefully, again, I don't know if they're selling made that
Who
specifically
was
because
that
of
quote
Carl.
from? Like,
This is an NFL tweet.
okay, all
NFL
right.
put it out
I
on
just wanted
Twitter.
to know who was the source.
No, no,
Okay.
yeah, this is it.
I also think that's incredibly relevant who's saying it because the brass is notorious for making a statement, but perhaps not backing that up with action after the fact.
This goes into our disingenuous conversations we had twice before now. But and again, I don't have any opinion on whether or not this is genuine or not. But they did say it. They said it during June, so take that for what it's worth. I don't know if they posted this because of Carl, but it's still a statement made. Like I said last week, when it comes to Biden, and like we said before, when it comes to the pride stuff. Now, like you just said, now what? So we shall see where it goes from here. But yeah, man, I think it's a great thing. I really wanted to talk about this just because it's historic, and hopefully we'll see someone else in one of the four sports feel comfortable enough as well to come out. Hopefully, it doesn't take another 8 years. With all the players we have in those four leagues, hopefully someone else, sooner rather than later, will actually do this, and maybe we'll start seeing dominoes fall. While people are actually still playing in whatever league they're in NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, whoever it is.
Right on. Well, thank you. Thank you for your perspective, Jason. I really do appreciate it. And I'm glad that we made the time because I do think it's important to acknowledge a milestone such as this. Okay. That concludes the segment on Carl Nassib. Coming up, we're going to discuss the trend of cops saying that low morale and department scrutiny are driving them away from the career of being a police officer. Coming up on the Cal Park Bros.